You say you're tired, but tired of what? Tired of doing the work or tired of doing the work without commitment? Let me tell you something real. When you're hungry enough, sleep don't stop you. When your back is against the wall, energy shows up. When purpose is strong, fatigue gets quiet. You're not tired, you're undisciplined, because discipline doesn't wait to feel good. Discipline moves when the alarm goes off. Discipline shows up when motivation is missing. Discipline works when excuses are loud. See, tired is physical. Undisciplined is mental. You scroll for hours, but 5 minutes of focus feels exhausting. You binge comfort, but sacrifice feels unbearable. You rest without earning it, and then wonder why rest doesn't restore you. Discipline is what separates dreams from delusion. Everybody wants the results, few want the routine. Everybody wants success. Nobody wants the structure. You don't need another break. You need a standard that says, I don't negotiate with my feeling. I don't quit because it's uncomfortable. I don't stop because it's boring. Or because greatness is repetitive, excellence is boring. Success is daily. If you only work when you feel inspired, you'll live a life of almost successful, almost disciplined, almost proud, but discipline. Discipline makes ordinary people unstoppable. So stop asking, how do I get more energy? Stop saying I'm tired. Say the truth. I haven't trained my mind. Because once discipline becomes your identity, your feelings no longer control your future. And that's when everything changes. Let me be honest with you, because honesty is the only thing that can wake you up. What you're calling fatigue isn't your body shutting down. It's your mind pushing back. It's resistance. It's the internal fight that happens when discipline is required. But comfort has been in charge for too long. Your body is stronger than you think. Your mind, however, has been trained to escape at the first sign of pressure. And when the mind doesn't want to do something, it uses the most convincing excuse it has, I'm tired. Think about it. You can stay up all night watching videos, scrolling your phone, laughing, talking, doing everything that brings comfort. And suddenly there's no fatigue at all. But the moment it's time to work, to focus, to sacrifice, to do something uncomfortable, your energy disappears. That's not exhaustion. That's avoidance. That's your mind saying, I don't want this. And because you've listened to that voice too many times, it's grown louder. Fatigue has become its favorite disguise. The mind is powerful. It protects patterns, not progress. If you've trained your mind to choose ease over effort, it will resist anything that threatens that comfort. It doesn't matter how big your dreams are. It doesn't matter how badly you say you want success. If your daily habits are soft, your mind will fight discipline like it's a threat. And every time you give in, you reinforce the lie that you can't push past discomfort. Over time, that lie starts to feel like truth. Here's what most people don't understand. Discipline is not about energy, it's about obedience. Obedience to a decision you made when you were clear, not when you were comfortable, when you decided you wanted more from life. You didn't say only if it feels good. You said you wanted growth, success, progress. But growth doesn't ask how you feel. Growth demands consistency. And consistency is boring, repetitive, and often uncomfortable. That's why the undisciplined mind calls it exhausting. Your mind gets tired when it's untrained. Just like an untrained body gets sore from basic movement, an untrained mind gets overwhelmed by focus, structure, and responsibility. You haven't built the mental endurance yet. So when it's time to show up, your mind panics. It reaches for excuses. It tells you to rest when you haven't earned rest. It tells you to slow down when you haven't even started moving at full capacity. Let's be clear. Real fatigue comes after effort. Real tired comes after you pushed, after you stretched yourself, after you've emptied the tank doing something meaningful. But most people aren't tired from effort, from indecision, tired from procrastination, tired from starting and stopping, tired from starting and stopping, tired from carrying a weight of guilt because they know they're capable of more, but keep choosing less. That kind of tired doesn't go away with sleep. It goes away with discipline. Every time you delay what you know you should do, you drain your energy. Every time you negotiate with your responsibility, you weaken your focus. The mind hates unfinished business. It hates broken promises. And when you keep breaking promises to yourself, it creates mental noise. That noise feels like exhaustion, but it's not your body failing. It's your integrity being tested. You don't need more sleep. You need more structure. You don't need more structure. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer options. When everything is optional, discipline collapses. The mind loves options because options allow escape. Discipline removes escape routes. Discipline says, we do it if we feel like it or not. And at first, the mind will rebel. It will scream. It will tell you you're tired, overwhelmed, burned out. But that's just withdrawal. That's what happens when comfort is no longer in control. The truth is, your mind has been spoiled. It's used as stimulation without effort, dopamine without discipline, pleasure without pain. And now when you ask it to focus, to delay gratification, to sit in silence and work, it reacts like a child being told to know for the first time. It throws a tantrum. It exaggerates discomfort. It magnifies fatigue. But if you stay consistent, if you don't flinch, it adapts. Just like the body adapts to training, the mind adapts to discipline. There's a version of you that doesn't get tired so easily. A version of you that doesn't complain at the first sign of resistance. A version of you that knows how to lock in and finish what it starts. That version isn't born, it's built. Built through repetition. Built through showing up on days you don't feel like it. Built through doing the work without asking for emotional permission. Most people never reach that version of themselves because they mislabel resistance as fatigue. They think something is wrong with them. They think they need a break, a reset, a new plan. But what they really need is to stay, to sit in the discomfort long enough for discipline to take root. Because once discipline becomes familiar, resistance loses its power. Understand this. The mind doesn't get tired of work. It gets tired of work it doesn't respect. If you don't respect your goals enough to protect your focus, your mind won't respect the process. If you treat your commitments casually, your mind will respond casually. Your mind will respond casually. But when you draw a line, when you decide that quitting is no longer an option, something shifts. The mind stops arguing and starts cooperating. You have to stop believing every thought that tells you to stop. Not commands. Fatigue is often just a suggestion, a test. A moment asking, how serious are you? And every time you push past that moment, you grow stronger. Not physically, mentally. You build trust with yourself. You prove that discomfort won't kill you. You show your mind who's in charge. The problem isn't that you're weak. The problem is that you've been undisciplined long enough for weakness to feel normal. But weakness is not your identity. It's a habit. And habits can be broken. And the same way you trained your mind to quit, you can train it to persist. But it won't happen with comfort. It won't happen with excuses. It happens with repetition under pressure. Stop waiting to feel energized before you act. Action creates energy. Movement generates momentum. When you start, even tired, something wakes up inside you. But you'll never experience that if you keep obeying the voice that tells you to stop before you begin. Discipline doesn't eliminate fatigue. It exposes fake fatigue. It separates real limits from imagined one. You are capable of more than you think. But capability means nothing without control over your time, control over your focus, control over your impulses, control over your impulses. And that control starts with recognizing the lie. The lie that says you're tired when you're really just resisting growth. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you stop believing it, everything changes. So the next time your mind tells you to quit, ask yourself if you're truly exhausted or just uncomfortable. Ask yourself if you've given your best or if you're protecting your comfort, and then choose discipline anyway. Because on the other side of that choice is a stronger mind, a sharper focus, and a version of you that no longer collapses under resistance. You're not tired. You're being tested, and discipline is the answer. Let's get something straight right now, because this is where most people lose the battle before it even begins. Discipline is not about how you feel. It never was. Discipline is about doing what needs to be done without asking your emotions for permission. The moment you start checking in with your feeling, the moment you start asking yourself, do I feel like it today? You've already handed control to the weakest part of you. Feelings are unstable. They change with weather, sleep, opinions, comfort, fear, and pressure. And if your actions depend on something that unstable, your life will never be stable. You don't feel like waking up early. You don't feel like working out. You don't feel like focusing. You don't feel like sacrificing. You don't feel like being consistent. And that's normal. That's human. But discipline doesn't care about normal. Discipline cares about results. And results don't come from comfort. They come from commitment. Most people think successful individuals feel motivated all the time. That's a lie. They don't feel it. They don't wake up excited every day. They don't always want to push. The difference is they don't negotiate with that feeling. They don't sit down and have a conversation with laziness. They don't ask fear for advice. They move first. They act first. You have to understand this. Your emotions were designed to respond, not to lead. When emotions lead, chaos follows. When discipline leads, emotions fall in line. But you've been trained the opposite way. You've been taught to listen to how you feel, honor how you feel, protect how you feel. And now your feelings are running your life, and they're running it straight into mediocrity. Every time you say, I'll start when I feel ready, you delay your destiny. Every time you say, I'll do it when I'm motivated, you're saying, I'll wait forever, because motivation is inconsistent. It's unreliable. It's emotional. Discipline is steady. Discipline is boring. Discipline is repetitive. And that's exactly why it works. Let me tell you something uncomfortable. The reason discipline feels so hard is because you've been practicing the opposite for years. You practice quitting. You practice procrastinating. You practice giving in to feelings. And now when you ask yourself to do something difficult, your emotions revolt. They say, this isn't who we are. And they're right, because you haven't trained yourself to be disciplined yet. But here's the truth. The identity is built, not discovered. You don't wake up disciplined. You earn discipline through repeated action without emotional permission. Every time you do the work when you don't feel like it, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. Every time you quit because you don't feel like it, you reinforce the person you're trying to escape. You say you want a better life, but you only work when the mood is right. You say you want success, but you stop when it gets uncomfortable. You say you want growth, but you run the moment resistance shows up. That's not a lack of desire. That's a lack of discipline. The truth hurts, but it frees you. Nobody's come to save you from your feeling. Nobody's going to remove discomfort from the process. Nobody is going to make discipline feel good in the beginning. You have to move anyway. You have to show up anyway. You have to execute anyway. Listen closely. The first few times you act without emotional permission, it will feel wrong. Your mind will say, this isn't sustainable. Your body will say, slow down. Your emotions will say, this is too much. But that's just because they're not used to being challenged. They've been in charge for too long. And like any power structure that's being threatened, they'll resist. But if you keep going, something powerful happens. The resistance weakens. The noise quiets down. The excuses lose volume. And one day you realize you didn't need permission at all. You realize you're capable of acting independently of how you feel. Freedom, real freedom, not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to do what you need to do, even when it's hard. Discipline is self-respect in action. It's saying, I keep my word to myself. It's saying, I don't betray my future for temporary comfort. And every time you keep that word, your confidence grows. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need validation because it's built on evidence. Most people are confident when things are easy. Disciplined people are confident when things are hard because they've proven to themselves that feelings don't control their behavior. And once you know that fear loses its grip, anxiety loses its power, doubt loses its authority. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your discipline. Goals are emotional. Discipline is structural. Goals inspire you. Discipline carries you when inspiration is gone. And inspiration always leads, always. If you're not disciplined, by then you quit. Stop romanticizing motivation. Stop waiting for the perfect move. Stop thinking you need to feel aligned before you act. Alignment comes after action, not before it. Clarity comes after movement. Strength comes after struggle. Your feelings will lie to you. They will tell you it's too late. They will tell you you're not ready. They will tell you to rest when you haven't worked. They will tell you to quit when you're one push away from breakthrough. And if you keep listening, they will cost you years of your life. But discipline tells the truth. Discipline says, get up. Discipline says a focus. Discipline says a finish. And it doesn't care if you like it. This is where separation happens. This is where average lives and exceptional lives split. Not at talent, not at opportunity, at discipline. At the moment when you either obey your feeling or you obey your commitments. You don't need to feel strong to act strong. Acting strong makes you strong. You don't need to feel confident to show up. Showing up builds confidence. You don't need to feel disciplined to be disciplined to be disciplined. Being disciplined creates discipline. So stop asking yourself how you feel. Ask yourself what needs to be done. Stop checking your mood. Check your standard. Stop negotiating with comfort. Start enforcing consistency, because the life you want is on the other side of discomfort you keep avoiding. And the only way to reach it is to move, without permission, without motivation, without excuses. Discipline is not cruel. It's honest. It doesn't promise ease. It promises results. And if you're serious about becoming more than you are right now, you have to stop letting your emotions sit in the driver's seat. You weren't built to be controlled by feeling. You were built to lead them. And the moment you decide that action comes first, everything changed, not overnight. Not instantly, but permanently. And that's the power of discipline without emotional permission. Let's talk about the real enemy, because most people are fighting the wrong thing. They think failure is what's holding them back. They think mistakes, losses, setbacks, or embarrassment are the reason they're not where they want to be. But failure isn't the enemy. Failure is honest. Failure teaches. Failure sharpens. Comfort is the real enemy, and comfort is far more dangerous because it doesn't feel like a threat. Comfort doesn't attack you. It seduces you. It whispers, "You've done enough." It tells you you deserve a break. It convinces you that tomorrow is guaranteed. And slowly, quietly, it robs you of urgency. You don't notice it happening because nothing feels wrong. There's no crisis, no pain, no emergency, just ease. And that ease slowly drains the hunger out of you. Failure hurts, but it wakes you up. Comfort feels good, but it puts you to sleep. Most people don't fail out of life. They drift, they settle, they lower standards so gradually they don't even realize they've changed. What once felt unacceptable now feels normal. What once scared them now feels realistic. And they call that maturity. But it's not maturity. It's not maturity. It's surrender. It's surrender. Comfort makes average feel safe. It makes potential feel optional. It turns dreams into hobbies and discipline into something you'll get back to later. Later becomes next year. Next year becomes never. And before you know it, you're explaining your life instead of living it. Here's the dangerous part. Comfort disguises itself as self-care. It tells you to protect your peace when what you're really protecting is your laziness. It tells you not to push too hard when the truth is you haven't pushed hard at all. It tells you to avoid stress, but growth is stressful. Expansion is stressful. Becoming someone new requires pressure. No pressure, no transformation. You don't grow in comfort. You grow in resistance. Failure will test you once in a while. Comfort tests you every day. It asks, will you choose ease or effort? And most days, most people choose ease, not because they're incapable, but because comfort doesn't demand courage. Failure forces you to respond. Comfort lets you stay exactly where you are. That's why comfort is so dangerous. It doesn't look like an enemy. It looks like rest. It looks like balance. It looks like being reasonable. But reasonable people rarely do unreasonable things. And extraordinary lives require unreasonable commitment. Comfort convinces you that you're fine where you are. It dulls dissatisfaction. It numbs urgency. And when urgency disappears, discipline disappears with it. You stop sharpening yourself. You stop chasing excellence. You stop demanding more from your time, your habits, your mind. Failure will make you question yourself. Comfort will make you forget yourself. Think about it. How many times have you said, I'll start tomorrow, not because you couldn't start today, but because today felt inconvenient? How many times have you chosen short-term relief over long-term reward? That wasn't failure stopping you. That was comfort negotiating your future away, one decision at a time. Comfort loves routines that don't challenge you. It loves habits that keep you busy but not productive. It loves distractions that feel harmless but still ours. And it especially loves excuses that sound logical. Comfort doesn't need lies, your justifications. I'm tired. I've been through a lot. I'll do it when things slow down. I need to get my life together first. Comfort doesn't rush you because comfort knows time is on its side. The longer you stay comfortable, the harder it becomes to leave. Because comfort weakens your tolerance for discomfort. What once felt manageable now feels overwhelming. What once felt challenging now feels impossible. Not because you've gotten weaker, but because you stopped training your resilience. Failure builds resilience, comfort erodes it. That's why some people bounce back stronger after failure, while others collapse under minor inconvenience. It's not strength, it's conditioning. The disciplined person has been uncomfortable on purpose. They've practiced doing hard things, so when life hits them, they're ready. The comfortable person hasn't built that muscle, so when pressure arrives, they panic. Comfort makes you fragile, and fragility is dangerous in a world that doesn't care how you feel. The truth is, you don't need more confidence. You need less comfort. Confidence is built through evidence. Evidence comes from action. Action requires discomfort. You can't think your way into confidence. You have to earn it by doing things that scare you, stretch you, challenge you. Comfort steals that opportunity from you. It keeps you safe, but safety is not success. Safety is survival. And you weren't built just to survive. You were built to grow, to expand, to become more than you are right now. Failure will humble you, but comfort will quietly shrink you. Look around. The people who are winning in life are not the ones who avoided failure. They're the ones who avoided comfort. They kept standards high when it would have been easier to lower them. They kept showing up when no one was watching. They chose discipline when excuses would have been accepted. Comfort tells you that you've earned the right to relax. Discipline asks if you've earned the results you say you want. There's a difference between rest and comfort. Rest is recovery after effort. Comfort is avoidance before effort. Rest prepares you to go again. Comfort convinces you there's no need to go at all. One builds you, the other dulls you. Most people aren't lazy, they're comfortable. They're not unmotivated, they're unchallenged. They've created a life that doesn't demand growth. And then they wonder why they feel stuck, bored, restless, unfulfilled. That feeling isn't burnout, it's unused potential. Unused potential hurts. Comfort allows you to tolerate a life that doesn't excite you. It makes mediocrity livable. And that's the real tragedy. Not failing big, but living small and calling it peace. Failure gives you feedback. Comfort gives you nothing. If you fail, at least you know where you stand. At least you know what to fix. At least you know you tried. But comfort keeps you guessing, keeps you wondering what if, keeps you trapped in comparison, watching others live the life you secretly wanted. And the worst part, comfort will let you blame circumstances. Failure forces accountability. Comfort encourages excuses. You don't break free from comfort with motivation. You break free with standards. You decide what's no longer acceptable. You draw lines. You remove options. You make discipline non-negotiable. Because comfort only survives where boundaries are weak. You have to be willing to feel uncomfortable on purpose, to wake up earlier than you want, to work longer than feels fair, to stay consistent when boredom hits, to say no to things that don't serve your growth, to choose long-term respect over short-term pleasure. Comfort will fight you when you do this. It will tell you you're doing too much. It will tell you you're being extreme. It will tell you to slow down. But remember, comfort has no interest in your future. It only cares about preserving the present. Failure will challenge you, but comfort will trap you. So stop fearing failure. Fear ease. Fear days with no pressure. Fear routines that don't demand excellence. Fear habits that don't stretch you. Fear a life where everything feels fine, but nothing feels meaningful. Because growth lives on the other side of discomfort. Purpose lives on the other side of effort. Pride lies on the other side of discipline. Once you choose discomfort consistently, comfort loses its grip. You don't become reckless, you become resilient. You don't become miserable, you become alive. You don't become obsessed, you become intentional. Failure will never destroy you if you're disciplined. Comfort will destroy you slowly if you let it. So choose pressure, choose standards, choose the hard path. Not because it's easy, but because it's honest. Honesty is the foundation of a life you can respect. Comfort will cost you everything you could have been, and that price is too high to pay. Most people build their lives on motivation, and that's exactly why their lives collapse the moment things get hard. Motivation is emotional. It's a spark, it's a feeling, and feelings are unstable by nature. They rise, they fall, they disappear without warning. One good video, one powerful speech, one emotional moment can make you feel unstoppable for a day, maybe two. But then life hits. Routine hits, resistance hits, And suddenly that fire is gone. That's not a failure of character. That's the nature of motivation. It was never meant to carry you for the long haul. Motivation feels good, but it lies. It convinces you that intensity matters more than consistency. It makes you believe that as long as you feel inspired, progress would happen. But inspiration without structure leads nowhere. You don't build strength by feeling strong once in a while. You build strength by showing up when you feel weak. That's where discipline comes in. Discipline doesn't rely on emotion. Discipline relies on decision. The problem is discipline doesn't feel exciting in the beginning. It feels repetitive. It feels boring. It feels thankless. And that's why most people abandon it. They mistake boredom for failure. They think if it doesn't feel powerful, it's not working. But discipline works quietly. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't hype you up. It just stacks days on top of days until results become unavoidable. Motivation says, oh, let's go hard today. Discipline says, oh, let's go again tomorrow. One is loud. The other is loyal. One fades. The other stays. Look at how people start things. New goals, new routines, new plans. Energy is high. Promises are big. Expectations are unrealistic. And when the initial excitement wears off, so does the commitment. That's because motivation was doing all the work. And motivation always gets tired. Discipline doesn't get tired. It gets stronger, but only if you stay long enough to build it. Discipline is a muscle. If you don't train it, it stays weak. If you rely on motivation, you never train discipline because motivation does the lifting for you in the beginning. But the moment motivation leaves, then it always leaves. You realize you don't have the strength to continue. That's when people quit and say, I lost motivation. Instead of saying the truth, I never built discipline. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is a resident. The most dangerous belief you can have is thinking you need to feel motivated to act. That belief gives your emotions authority over your behavior. It teaches you to wait instead of lead. It turns discipline into an option instead of a standard. And when discipline is optional, excuses become acceptable. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what needs to be done. It doesn't care if you're inspired. It doesn't care if you're excited. It cares if you show up. And every time you show up without motivation, you strengthen discipline. Every time you wait for motivation, you weaken it. People say they're inconsistent because they lack motivation. That's backward. They lack motivation because they're inconsistent. Consistency creates confidence. Confidence creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. Motivation is not the starting point. It's a byproduct. But most people try to start with the reward instead of the work. Discipline builds identity. Motivation builds mood. When you're disciplined, you don't debate with yourself every day. You don't wake up wondering if you're going to do the work. It's already decided. That decision removes mental fatigue. It removes negotiation. It removes excuses. And that clarity creates peace. Not comfort, peace. The peace of knowing you're becoming who you said you would be. Motivation creates emotional highs and lows. Discipline creates stability, is what carries you through long seasons. Success is not a moment. It's a lifestyle. And lifestyles are built on habits. Think about the people you admire most. The ones who are consistent, reliable, respected. They're not the most motivated people in the room. They're the most disciplined. They don't talk much about how they feel. They talk about what they do. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They adjust and execute. Motivation reacts to circumstances. Discipline dictates behavior, regardless of circumstances. The truth is, motivation is selfish. It shows up when it benefits you emotionally. Discipline is selfish. It shows up because you made a commitment to your future, your family, your purpose. Motivation says, what do I feel like doing today? Discipline says, what does my future need from me today? Motivation wants fast results. Discipline understands delayed gratification. Motivation wants visible progress. Discipline is willing to work in silence. Motivation wants recognition. Discipline is comfortable being unseen. That's why discipline wins in the long run. Motivation will help you start. Discipline will help you finish. And finishing is where transformation happens. Starting feels good, but finishing builds pride. Finishing builds respect. Finishing builds proof. Discipline doesn't eliminate struggle. It organizes it. It turns chaos into order. It turns effort into routine. And once something becomes routine, it no longer drains you the same way. What once felt heavy becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes expected. Motivation is dependent on circumstances. Discipline creates circumstances. You don't wait for life to feel right before you act. You act, and life begins to align. But that alignment only comes when your actions are consistent. Discipline is what aligns you. Motivation just gives you a temporary push in the right direction. When motivation fades, you either have discipline or you have excuses. There is no third option. People love to talk about passion. Passion is emotional. Passion fluctuates. Discipline sustains passion. Without discipline, passion burns out. With discipline, passion matures. It becomes focused, controlled, powerful. Discipline doesn't mean you never rest. It means you rest with intention, not avoidance. It means rest is earned, not escaped to. Motivation rests whenever it feels tired. Discipline rests when the work is done. The difference between people who succeed and people who don't is not desire. Everyone wants more. The difference is who shows up when desire isn't enough. Who keeps moving when excitement is gone? Who stays when quitting will feel easier? Motivation will hype you up at the beginning of the year. Discipline will carry you through the end of it. Motivation will promise change. Discipline will deliver it. If you want a permanent change, you need a permanent system. Motivation is temporary by design. Discipline is permanent by choice. And once discipline becomes part of who you are, motivation becomes optional. Some days you'll feel it, some days you won't, but it won't matter anymore. Because your actions won't be controlled by emotion. They'll be controlled by standards. That's when you stop starting over. That's when you stop needing speeches to get moving. That's when progress becomes inevitable. Motivation lights the fire. Discipline keeps it burning. Most people don't understand rest. And because they don't understand it, they misuse it. They run to rest, not because they've given everything they have, but because they're trying to escape what they refuse to face. Real rest is recovery after effort. Fake rest is avoidance disguised as self-care. And the dangerous part is that avoidance feels justified. It feels responsible, it feels reasonable, but slowly, quietly, it destroys momentum, discipline, and self-respect. Rest was never meant to replace work. It was meant to restore you after work. When you rest without effort, you don't come back refreshed. You come back weaker. Because nothing drains the mind more than knowing you avoided what you were capable of doing. That kind of exhaustion doesn't come from effort. It comes from guilt, from unfinished business, from promises broken to yourself. You say you're tired, but tired from what? Tired from pushing, or tired from delaying, tired from grinding, or tired from carrying the weight of knowing you should be doing more. Because those are two very different kinds of tired. One builds you, the other slowly eats away at you. When rest becomes a habit instead of a reward, it stops restoring you. It numbs you. It dulls your edge. It lowers your tolerance for discomfort. And once your tolerance drops, even small challenges feel overwhelming. That's how people end up exhausted without ever doing anything exhausting. They rest their way into weakness. Real rest feels good because it's earned. It hits different when you know you gave everything you had. When you know you showed up, when you know you didn't quit early. That rest doesn't come with guilt. It doesn't come with anxiety. It doesn't come with that voice in your head reminding you of what you avoided. It comes with peace. The peace of integrity. The peace of knowing you honored your commitment. But escape rest is rest. You sit still, but your mind won't stop. You lie down, but you're not at ease. You distract yourself, but the pressure follows you. Because deep down, you know the truth. You didn't need rest. You needed discipline. Most people don't burn out from doing too much. They burn out from doing too little of what matters. They're busy, but not productive. Active, but not intentional. Distracted, not disciplined. And that kind of burnout doesn't get fixed with more rest. It gets fixed with clarity and structure. You can't rest your way out of avoidance. You have to work your way out of it. There's a reason disciplined people don't feel the same kind of exhaustion. It's not because they're superhuman. It's because their rest is clean. Their rest isn't mixed with regret. They don't lie to themselves. They don't tell themselves they're resting when they're really hiding. They know when it's time to push, and they know when it's time to recover. And because they respect that boundary, both work and rest work for them. Undisciplined rest creates laziness. Disciplined rest creates longevity. The problem is comfort has rebranded itself as rest. Comfort tells you to slow down before you've even started. Comfort tells you to protect your energy instead of invest it. Comfort tells you that pushing yourself is unhealthy while quietly robbing you of your potential. And because comfort feels good in the moment, you don't notice the damage until years later. Rest is not the enemy. Comfort is. Rest prepares you to go again. Comfort convinces you there's no need to go at all. When you rest without earning it, you train your mind to quit early. You teach yourself that discomfort is optional, that effort is negotiable, that consistency depends on mood. And once those lessons sink in, discipline becomes almost impossible because every time things get hard, your mind reaches for rest instead of resilience. Earned rest strengthens discipline. Escape rest weakens it. Think about how strong people rest. They don't rush to it. They don't crave it constantly. They respect it. They schedule it. They protect it. And because they work with intention, they can rest with intention. Their rest isn't an escape. It's a reset. But most people don't want to reset. They want relief. And relief is temporary. Relief doesn't change your life. It just delays responsibility. Relief feels good now and costs you later. Real rest doesn't remove pressure forever. It prepares you to handle pressure better. That's why rest should follow effort, not replace it. Effort gives rest meaning. Without effort, rest loses its power. It becomes another form of indulgence, another way to avoid growth, another excuse to stay the same. The truth is, if rest always feels necessary, something is wrong. Either you're doing work that has no purpose or you're avoiding work that does. Because meaningful effort, even when it's hard, energizes you. It drains your body, but feeds your spirit. Avoidance does the opposite. It saves your body, but starves your spirit. You can't relax your way into pride. You can't rest your way into confidence. You earn those things by doing hard things consistently. And once you've earned them, rest becomes something beautiful, something pure, something that actually restores you. When you rest without discipline, rest becomes addictive. You start needing it more and more. You become dependent on breaks. You feel overwhelmed by responsibility, and eventually even rest stops working. You sleep more, scroll more, escape more, and feel worse. That's not because rest failed you. It's because you never earned it. Discipline creates a rhythm. Work, recover, repeat. Break that rhythm and everything feels off. Work without rest leads to burnout. Rest without work leads to decay. Balance doesn't come from doing less. It comes from doing what matters in the right order. Earn your rest, and rest will serve you. Escape into rest, and rest will betray you. The reason disciplined people don't fear work is because they trust rest. And the reason undisciplined people crave rest is because they don't trust themselves to work. They've broken that trust too many times. So even when they're resting, they're uneasy. Because deep down, they know rest is being used as a shield, not a reward. Rest is supposed to feel safe. But safety doesn't come from avoiding effort. It comes from knowing you can handle it. When you consistently show up, push through discomfort, and finish what you start, your nervous system calms down. Your mind stops panicking. You don't feel overwhelmed as easily. You don't need to escape as often because your confidence isn't built on hope. It's built on proof. It's built on proof. That proof comes from discipline. You don't need more breaks. You need more follow through. You don't need more time off. You need more days where you actually do what you said you would do. Those days create peace. Those days create rest that actually works. Earned rest doesn't feel like hiding. It feels like exhaling. The problem with escaping into rest is that it teaches you the wrong lesson. It teaches you that discomfort should be avoided instead of mastered. That lesson follows you everywhere, into your goals, into your relationships, into your purpose. And eventually you start avoiding anything that requires effort. Not because you can't do it, but because you've trained yourself not to. Rest should never make you weaker. If it does, it's not rest, it's surrender. When you earn rest, you come back sharper, hungrier, more focused, more grateful. When you escape into rest, you come back slower, heavier, less disciplined, less willing to push. That difference compounds over time. Discipline doesn't mean you never rest. It means you respect rest enough not to abuse it. It means you don't lie to yourself about why you're stopping. It means you can say, I've done enough for today without shame, because you actually have. Rest without effort creates entitlement. Rest after effort creates appreciation. And appreciation changes how you move. You don't waste time as easily. You don't complain as much. You don't need constant stimulation because you know what it costs to earn peace. Most people want the relief of rest without the responsibility of discipline, but relief fades fast. Responsibility builds something that lasts. Earn your rest, and it will heal you. Escape into rest, and will slowly hollow you out. You weren't designed to avoid effort. You were designed to recover from it. And when you finally stop running to rest and start running to discipline, rest becomes what it was always meant to be, not a hiding place, but a reward. That's when rest stops feeling heavy and starts feeling holy. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want. Whatever you want, whenever you want. No rules, no pressure, and no structure. But that idea of freedom is a lie, and it's costing people their focus, their energy, and their future. Real freedom doesn't come from a lack of structure. It comes from mastering structure. Because when you don't control your day controls you. And when your day controls you, you are not free, you are reactive. Structure is not a cage. Structure is a framework that holds you steady when life gets chaotic. Without it, every decision drains you. You wake up already tired because your mind immediately has to negotiate. What should I do first? When should I start? How much is enough? Those questions seem harmless, but they create mental fatigue before you've even begun. Structure removes that fatigue. It decides in advance, so you don't have to. Undisciplined lives feel flexible, but they are exhausted. You're constantly adjusting, constantly reacting, constantly playing catch up. You think you're free because no one is telling you what to do, but in reality, your impulses are in charge. Your phone dictates your attention, your mood dictates your effort, your comfort dictates your pace. Your pace. That's not freedom, that's slavery to distraction. Structure creates clarity, and clarity creates peace. When you know what your day requires, you don't waste energy resisting it. You move with intention. You stop arguing with yourself. You stop procrastinating because there's nothing to debate. The decision has already been made. That decision gives you room to breathe, room to focus, room to execute. People fear structure because they think it will make life rigid and dull. But chaos is far more suffocating than routine. Chaos keeps you anxious. Chaos keeps you behind. Chaos keeps you overwhelmed. Structure gives you momentum. And momentum feels like freedom. Think about it. The people who feel the most trapped are often the ones with the least structure. They're always busy but never fulfilled. Always tired but never productive. Always stressed but never progressing. That stress comes from unpredictability. From knowing you should be doing something but knowing when or how. Structure eliminates that tension. Structure doesn't limit creativity, it protects it. When your basics are handled, your mind is free to think bigger. When your habits are locked in, your energy is available for growth. When your schedule is intentional, your creativity has space to breathe. Chaos suffocates creativity. Structure fuels it. Freedom is not the absence of responsibility. Freedom is the ability to handle responsibility without breaking. Structure trains your nervous system to feel safe under pressure. When you repeatedly show up at the same time, do the same work, and keep promises to yourself, your mind stops panicking. It trusts you. And when your mind trusts you, it doesn't need to sabotage you with anxiety, doubt, or distraction. Most people feel overwhelmed not because they have too much to do, but because they don't have a system to do it. Everything feels urgent. Everything feels heavy. Everything feels unclear. Structure brings order. Order reduces stress. Reduced stress increases performance. Structure also protects your energy. When you don't plan your day, you bleed energy reacting to interruptions, distractions, and last-minute decisions. When you do plan your day, you decide where your energy goes. You stop giving your best hours to your least important tasks. You stop wasting prime focus on meaningless activity. That's freedom. Structure gives you leverage. It allows small, consistent actions to compound. You don't need massive effort every day. You need reliable effort. And reliability only exists inside structure. Motivation can't sustain reliability. Feelings can't sustain reliability. Only systems can. People chase freedom by avoiding discipline, but discipline is the gateway to freedom. When you discipline your mornings, your days open up. When you discipline your habits, your future becomes predictable in a good way. When you discipline your focus, your results accelerate. Structure doesn't remove spontaneity, it earns it. When you've handled your responsibilities, you can enjoy flexibility without guilt. When you've done the work, rest feels clean. When you've earned your freedom, you can actually enjoy it. Without structure, even fun feels heavy because it's mixed with avoidance, mixed with guilt, mixed with the knowledge that something important is being ignored. Structure removes that weight. It lets you be fully present, whether you're working or resting. Structure is how you respect your time. And when you respect your time, others do too. You stop being available for everything. You stop letting people interrupt your priorities. You stop drifting through days hoping things will work out. Hope is not a strategy. Structure is, you don't need more time. You need better organization of the time you already have. Structure turns time into a tool instead of a threat. It stops time from slipping through your fingers unnoticed. The reason structure feels uncomfortable at first is because it exposes habits you've been avoiding. It removes excuses. It reveals how much time you've been wasting. That can feel confronting. But on the other side of that discomfort is empowerment. Structure gives you proof of progress. When you follow a system, you can measure improvement. You can track consistency. You can see momentum building. That evidence builds confidence, not emotional confidence, earned confidence. Freedom without structure feels good today and stressful tomorrow. Structure feels demanding today and freeing tomorrow. Discipline your environment and you don't have to fight yourself as much. Discipline your schedule and you don't have to rely on willpower. Discipline your habits and you don't have to constantly start over. Structure reduces friction and reduced friction makes consistency possible. You don't become free by removing limits. You become free by choosing the right limits. Limits that protect your focus. Limits that guard your energy. Limits that align your actions with your goals. The most powerful people are not the ones with endless options. They are the ones with clear priorities. Structure creates those priorities. It tells you what matters and when it matters. When structure becomes part of your life, anxiety drops. Decision fatigue disappears. Progress accelerates. And suddenly life feels lighter, not because you're doing less, but because you're doing what matters in the right order. That's real freedom. Every day, whether you admit it or not, your life is reporting on you. Not with words, not with promises, not with intentions, but with habits. Habits don't lie. They don't exaggerate. They don't care about what you say you want. They quietly reveal what actually matters to you. You can talk about your goals all day, but your daily actions are telling the truth behind your back. You say you want success, but what does your morning look like? You say you want growth, but how do you spend your free time? You say you want discipline, but how often do you choose comfort when no one is watching? Your habits answer those questions honestly, even when you don't. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because their daily behavior contradicts their stated priorities. They say one thing and live another. And that gap between what you say matters and what you do daily is where frustration, guilt, and self-doubt are born. Your habits are not random. They are rehearsed priorities. You don't accidentally scroll for hours. You don't accidentally skip the work. You don't accidentally avoid the hard thing. Those actions are choices repeated so often they feel automatic. And automatic behavior is powerful because it runs your life quietly without needing permission. People love to say, I don't have time, but time is not the issue. Allocation is. You make time for what you value. You always have. You always will. If something truly matters to you, you find a way. If it doesn't, you find an excuse. That's not judgment. That's reality. Look at your habits, and you'll find your real priorities written clearly. What you do first thing in the morning matters. What you do when you're tired matters. What you do when no one is watching matters. Those moments reveal what's actually important to you, not what you wish was important. The uncomfortable truth is this. Most people are not confused about what they should do. They're conflicted. They know the right action, but they've trained themselves to choose the easier one. And after doing that long enough, they stop trusting themselves. They stop believing their own goals. Because deep down, they know their habits don't match their words. Broken self-trust is exhausting. Every time you say, I'll do it tomorrow, And don't you weaken your credibility with yourself. Every time you avoid what you know matters, you send a message to your mind. My word doesn't mean much. My word doesn't mean much. Over time, that message becomes identity. And once it becomes identity, change feels impossible. But it's not impossible. It's just uncomfortable. Habits are votes. Every habit is a vote for the person you're becoming. You don't become disciplined in one moment. You become disciplined by voting for discipline daily. You don't become lazy overnight. You become lazy by repeatedly choosing avoidance over effort. Small habits feel harmless, but they compound into character. You don't need massive breakthroughs to change your life. You need alignment. Alignment between what you say you want and what you do repeatedly. When habits align with goals, life feels purposeful. When they don't, life feels chaotic, even if everything looks fine on the outside. The reason many people feel stuck is not because they don't know their purpose. It's because their habits are working against it. You can't outdream bad habits. You can't outthink inconsistency. You can't manifest discipline. You have to practice it. And the practice is daily. The mind adapts to whatever you repeatedly do. If you repeatedly avoid effort, effort begins to feel threatening. If you repeatedly push through resistance, loses its power. The brain is not judging you, it's learning you. It learns from behavior, not intention. That's why your habits matter more than your motivation. Motivation is loud, but short-lived. Habits are quiet, but permanent. Motivation can lie to you about who you are. Habits show you the truth. And that truth can be painful, but it's also empowering. Because habits are changeable. You don't have to change your whole life today. You have to change what you do today. People often overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. Why? Because they focus on intensity instead of consistency. They look for dramatic change instead of disciplined repetition. But repetition is where identity is built. Your habits shape your self-image. If you wake up early consistently, you start seeing yourself as someone who shows up. If you train consistently, you start seeing yourself as someone who doesn't quit. If you focus consistently, you start seeing yourself as someone reliable. And that self-image reinforces behavior. That's the cycle most people miss. Bad habits create negative identity. Negative identity creates low expectations. Low expectations create more bad habits. Discipline breaks that cycle. Not all at once, but step by step. You don't rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your habits. Under pressure, you don't become who you want to be. You become who you've trained yourself to be. And training happens daily, whether you're intentional about it or not. That's why excuses are dangerous. Excuses feel harmless, but they protect habits that are costing you your future. Every excuse justifies staying the same. And staying the same is the real threat, not failure. Failure can redirect you. Habits define you. The habits you protect are the habits you prioritize. If you protect distractions, distraction is your priority. If you protect comfort, comfort is your priority. If you protect discipline, discipline becomes your identity, and identity drives everything. You don't need more pressure from the outside. You need more honesty on the inside. You need to look at your habits without emotion, without excuses, without self-hate, and simply add, are these actions taking me where I say I want to go? If the answer is no, that's not a reason for shame. It's a signal for change. Most people wait for a crisis to change their habits. But disciplined people don't wait for pain. They respond to truth. They don't need life to fall apart to wake up. They adjust early. They course correct daily. They understand that habits are easier to change when the stakes are still manageable. Waiting makes habits harder to break. The longer a habit survives, the more it feels like personality. But personality is just practiced behavior. You are not a just this way. You've just been this way repeatedly, and repetition can be interrupted. You don't have to feel ready to change a habit. You have to feel honest. Habits don't change because you're inspired. They change because you replace them. You don't stop bad habits by resisting them. You stop them by installing better ones. You give your energy a new direction. You give your time a new structure, and structure reveals priorities. If your schedule is random, your priorities will be random. If your day is intentional, your growth will be intentional. Habits thrive in structure. Discipline lives in routine. Freedom is built on systems, not wishes. You can't live a disciplined life with undisciplined days. The hardest part is the beginning, because the beginning exposes the gap between who you are and who you want to be. That gap hurts, but it also motivates if you don't run from it. If you face it and say, I'm willing to close this gap one habit at a time. Consistency is not glamorous. It doesn't feel powerful, it doesn't feel heroic, but it works. And over time, it builds something priceless. Self-respect. Self-respect doesn't come from success. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. And habits are promises repeated daily. When you honor them, you trust yourself. When you trust yourself, you stop needing external validation. You stop needing constant motivation. You move with quiet confidence. That confidence changes how you speak, how you walk, how you decide. It changes what you tolerate. It changes what you settle for, and it all starts with habits. Your habits are either reinforcing your excuses or reinforcing your future. There's no neutral. Every day you are becoming something. The only question is whether that something aligns with the life you say you want. You don't need to judge your habits. You need to listen to them. They are giving you feedback, honest feedback. And if you're brave enough to accept it, you can change everything. Not tomorrow, not next year, today. Because today's habits are tomorrow's reality. Potential is one of the most dangerous words in the world, not because it's bad, but because it's comfortable. Potential sounds positive. It sounds hopeful. It sounds like a compliment. People tell you, you have so much potential, and you smile because it feels good to be seen as someone who could be great. But potential without discipline is just a nice idea that never becomes real. And the longer you live on potential alone, the heavier it becomes. Potential is what you could do. Discipline is what you actually do. There are people walking around with gifts that could change their families, their communities, even their generation. But those gifts are locked behind inconsistency. Talent opens the door, but discipline is the only thing that lets you walk through it. Without discipline, potential doesn't lift you up. It haunts you. It reminds you of what you didn't become. It shows up as regret later in life when excuses no longer work. Discipline is the difference between dreaming and proving. Most people don't lack ability. They lack follow through. They start strong and fade fast. They get excited, then distracted. They plan, then postpone. And every time they stop short, potential stays theoretical. It never becomes evidence. And life doesn't reward theory. Life rewards proof. You don't get credit for what you almost did. You don't get respect for what you could have been. You get results for what you consistently do. Discipline is the process that turns invisible potential into visible results. It's the grind nobody claps for. It's the repetition nobody sees. It's the quiet commitment to show up again, even when there's no excitement, no praise, no immediate payoff. And that's why so few people develop it. Discipline doesn't feed the ego, it feeds the future. Potential feels exciting because it doesn't require sacrifice yet. Discipline feels heavy because it demands payment up front. Time, energy, focus, comfort. Discipline asks you to give before you receive. And most people hesitate right there. They want the reward without the routine. The recognition without the repetition. But proof is built in private. Discipline doesn't care how talented you are. It cares how consistent you are. Talent can impress people once. Discipline earns respect over time. Talent can open opportunities. Discipline keeps them open. Talent might get you noticed. Discipline keeps you relevant. That's why discipline is uncomfortable. It exposes gaps. It shows you how far you really are from your potential. And that truth can sting. It's easier to stay in the land of a someday than to confront the work required today. But someday never comes without discipline. Potential doesn't move unless discipline pushes it. There are people less gifted than you, less intelligent than you, less creative than you, living better lives. Not because they're lucky, but because they're consistent. They don't wait to feel ready. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They do the work even when it's inconvenient. And over time, their discipline turns average ability into extraordinary outcomes. That's the power of discipline. It compounds. One day of discipline doesn't change your life. 1 week doesn't either. But months of disciplined action reshape your identity. Years of discipline rewrite your story. Discipline turns small efforts into massive momentum. It takes what feels insignificant today and makes it undeniable tomorrow. Potential fades if it's not acted on. Discipline preserves it. The tragedy is not that people fail. The tragedy is that people never test their potential. They never find out how far they could go because they quit when it got boring, uncomfortable, or slow. They confuse a lack of immediate results with a lack of ability. And so they stop right before discipline has time to work. Discipline requires patience. Proof takes time. You don't wake up one day and suddenly see the full results of discipline. You wake up one day and realize you're no longer the same person. You think differently. You respond differently. You expect more from yourself. And those internal changes eventually show up externally in your work, your confidence, your results. Discipline builds trust between you and yourself. Every time you do what you say you would do, you strengthen that trust. Every time you quit early, you weaken it. And without self-trust, potential means nothing. You stop believing your own goals. You stop taking your own dreams seriously. Because deep down, you know your actions don't back up your words. Discipline fixes that. It turns promises into habit, habits into identity, identity into results. That's the chain most people never complete. Potential loves to be talked about. Discipline loves to be practiced. Potential sounds good in conversation. Discipline looks boring in real life. But boring is what builds something lasting. Flashy fades, consistency remains. You don't need to become obsessed. You need to become reliable. Reliable with your time. Reliable with your effort. Reliable with your standards. Discipline is not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about getting back on track faster when you fall off. It's about not letting one bad day turn into a bad month. It's about refusing to let emotions dictate your long-term direction. Potential is fragile without discipline. One setback can derail it. Discipline makes potential resilient. It allows you to absorb failure without quitting, to learn without collapsing, to adapt without losing momentum. That's why disciplined people don't fear failure. Failure doesn't erase discipline. It sharpens it. Potential-only people fear failure because it threatens the story they tell themselves. Discipline, focused people embrace failure because it gives feedback. Feedback leads to improvement. Improvement leads to proof. The world doesn't owe you anything for your potential. It doesn't reward intentions. It doesn't care what you meant to do. It responds to execution, to results, to consistency. And discipline is what delivers those things. You don't discover your limits by thinking. You discover them by doing. Discipline forces you to test yourself, to see how much you can handle, how much you can grow, how far you can go. Without discipline, your limits stay imaginary. Most people live far below their capacity, not because they're incapable, but because they never stayed disciplined long enough to find out who they really are. Discipline is uncomfortable because it demands honesty. It shows you when you're making excuses. It exposes your patterns. It removes the safety net of a maybe someday. And once that safety net is gone, you either rise or you retreat. Those who rise build proof. Proof changes everything. Proof silences doubt. Proof replaces hope with confidence. Proof turns I think I can until I know I can. And once you have proof, your mindset shifts. You stop asking if you're capable and start asking how far you can push. That's when life changes pace. Potential is passive. Discipline is active. Potential waits. Discipline moves. Potential hopes. Discipline executes. And execution is what separates those who talk from those who become. You don't need more belief in yourself. You need more evidence. And evidence only comes from disciplined action repeated over time. The saddest thing is meeting someone later in life who says, "Odds have been great." That sentence hurts because it's unfinished. It's full of what ifs. Discipline finishes sentences. Discipline completes stories. Discipline turns a could off into I did. And when everything is said and done, when the noise fades, when the crowd disappears, when the applause stops, you are left with one unavoidable truth. Your life will speak for you. Not your intentions, not your excuses, not your potential, your life, your daily choices, your habits, your consistency, your discipline. That is the final message the world hears. You don't get to negotiate with time. Every day shows up and asks the same question. Who are you becoming today? Not who you want to be someday, not who you were yesterday. Who are you becoming right now in this moment with the choices you are making when no one is forcing you to choose better? Discipline is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand recognition. But it leaves evidence, it leaves results. It leaves a trail of progress that cannot be denied. And one day, people will look at your life and say, something changed. What they won't see are the thousands of small decisions you made when quitting would have been easier, when comfort was calling, when excuses sounded logical. They won't see the mornings you showed up tired. They won't see the nights you stayed consistent instead of distracted. They won't see the battles you fought with yourself and won quietly. But the results will speak. This is where everything comes together. This is where potential finally meets responsibility, because potential alone is not a gift, it's a test of whether you will honor what you've been given or waste it waiting for the perfect moment. Discipline is how you pass that test. You don't need to transform your entire life overnight. That's not how discipline works. Discipline starts with one decision made correctly, then another, then another. It's choosing progress over comfort. It's choosing consistency over excitement. It's choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term relief. And yes, there will be days when you don't feel like it. Days when motivation is nowhere to be found. Days when doubt feels heavier than belief. But discipline was never built on feelings. Discipline is built on standards. Standards that say, I do what needs to be done, regardless of how I feel. That's maturity. That's growth. That's strength. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. Habits are born from discipline, repetition. Over time, what once felt hard becomes normal. What once felt uncomfortable becomes familiar. And what once felt impossible becomes expected. That's how life changes. At some point, you have to stop waiting for clarity and start creating momentum. Clarity comes after action, not before it. Confidence comes from proof, not positive thinking. And proof only comes when discipline is applied long enough for results to show. Stop asking yourself if you're ready. Stop waiting for the right move. Stop negotiating with your comfort zone. Readiness is built through action. Courage is built through consistency. Identity is built through discipline. Every day you delay, potential weakens. Every day you act, discipline strengthens. And over time, that strength becomes unstoppable. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to respect yourself. You begin to move differently because you know you can rely on your own word. That self-respect is priceless. There's a version of you on the other side of discipline that you haven't met yet. Stronger, sharper, more focused, more confident. That version isn't created by luck or talent. It's created by showing up when it's hard, by doing the work when no one is watching, by choosing growth when comfort is tempting. That version of you is waiting, but it will not chase you. You must walk toward it, one disciplined step at a time. And understand this. Discipline doesn't mean your journey will be easy. It means your journey will be honest. You will face setbacks. You will stumble. You will doubt yourself. But discipline teaches you how to recover without quitting, how to learn without collapsing, how to keep moving even when progress feels slow. Slow progress is still progress. Quiet growth is still growth. Consistency without recognition is still winning. One day you will look back and realize the moments you thought didn't matter were the ones that mattered most. The ordinary days, the repetitive days, the days where nothing dramatic happened, but you stayed disciplined anyway. Those days stacked up. Those days built momentum. Those days changed your life. You don't need permission to become disciplined. You don't need validation. You don't need applause. You need commitment. Commitment to your future self. Commitment to your potential. Commitment to not letting comfort steal what consistency could build. The world is full of people who started strong and stopped early. Be the one who stayed. Stayed when it got boring. Stayed when it got hard. Stayed when quitting felt justified. Because staying is where discipline lives. Instinct changes everything. Years from now, you won't remember how uncomfortable discipline felt at the beginning. You won't remember how proud you are that you didn't quit. You won't regret the work you did. You'll regret the work you didn't do. Discipline saves you from that regret. Let your life be evidence. Evidence that growth is possible. Evidence that consistency works. Evidence that potential doesn't have to die unused. Evidence that discipline can rewrite a story. You are not behind. You are not incapable. You are not finished. But you are responsible. Responsible for what you do next. Responsible for how you show up. Responsible for whether your potential remains a conversation or becomes a contribution. Make the choice today. Not tomorrow, not someday. Today, choose discipline over delay. Choose consistency over comfort. Choose proof over potential. Because at the end of your journey, what will matter most is not what you dreamed about doing. It's what you actually did. And discipline is what turns a dream into a legacy. Let your actions speak. Let your consistency answer the doubts. Let your discipline finish the story. And when your life finally speaks for you, make sure it tells a story of effort, growth, resilience, and proof. And even after all of this is understood, even after the words settle in your mind, the real work begins the moment this speech ends. Because motivation can move you emotionally, but only discipline will move you daily. Inspiration can light a fire, but discipline is what keeps it burning when the wind gets strong. You must understand this deeply. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is coming to force you to be consistent. Nobody is coming to push you on the days you feel empty. And that is not a weakness. That is your power. Because when you accept full responsibility, you stop waiting and start building. Discipline is self-leaders choosing to guide yourself when there is no external pressure. It is becoming the person who does not need reminders, threats, or rewards to do what must be done. And when you reach that level, you are dangerous in the best way possible. Dangerous to excuses, dangerous to mediocrity, dangerous to the limits you once believed defined you. You don't need perfect conditions to be disciplined. You need commitment in imperfect conditions. Life will never slow down to make it easier for you. Responsibilities will pile up. Stress will show up uninvited. Fatigue will knock on your door. Discipline is answering anyway. Discipline is saying, I will not pause my growth just because life is heavy. And yes, there will be moments when you fall short. Discipline does not mean perfection. It means correction. It means you don't stay down. You don't disappear. You don't disappear. You don't abandon yourself because of one bad day. You adjust, you refocus, and you continue. That ability to restart without drama is one of the highest forms of discipline. The disciplined person does not live without struggle. They live without excuses. They don't deny pain. They manage it. They don't pretend things are easy. They accept that difficulty is part of the process. And because of that acceptance, difficulty loses its power to stop them. You must stop romanticizing motivation and start respecting discipline. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. Motivation depends on emotion. Discipline depends on identity. When you decide who you are, your actions follow. Why I'm the type of person who shows up. That sentence, live daily, changes everything. At some point, discipline stops feeling like force and starts feeling like alignment. You no longer feel like you are fighting yourself. Your actions match your goals. Your habits match your standard. Your days match your vision. That alignment brings peace, not excitement, not high peace. And peace is priceless. Because when you are disciplined, you don't panic when results are slow. You trust the process. You understand that growth is invisible before it is undeniable. You stop looking for quick validation and start building long-term value. That patience separates those who last from those who burn out. Your future does not need your wishes. It needs your work. It needs your consistency. It needs your discipline when nobody is watching and nothing is trending. Legacy is built in silence long before it is recognized publicly. One day people will ask how you stayed consistent, how you didn't quit, how you kept going when others stopped. And the answer will not be dramatic. It will be simple. You decided that quitting was no longer an option. That decision changes everything. You are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are not missing something everyone else has. What separates outcomes is not talent. It is discipline applied over time. Ordinary actions repeated daily create extraordinary results. Let today be the day you stop negotiating with yourself. Stop lowering standards to match moods. Stop waiting for energy before you act. Act first. Discipline creates energy. Discipline creates confidence. Discipline creates momentum. And momentum will carry you further than motivation ever could. You don't need to do more. Need to do what matters consistently. You don't need to feel ready. You need to be willing. Willing to be uncomfortable. Willing to be patient. Willing to be disciplined long enough for change to take root. This is not about proving anything to anyone else. This is about keeping your word to yourself. Because when you break promises to yourself, you lose trust internally. And when you keep them, you build unshakable confidence. Let discipline become your language. Let consistency become your signature. Let action become your answer to doubt. And when the journey feels lonely, remember this. Discipline often feels isolating because it separates you from the version of yourself that was comfortable staying the same. That separation is necessary. Growth requires distance from old habits, old patterns, old excuses. Step into that distance with confidence. Your life is not defined by what you feel today, but by what you choose repeatedly. Choose discipline, choose structure, choose responsibility, choose growth. And years from now, when you stand in a place you once only imagined, you will understand that the greatest decision you ever made was not believing in yourself, but disciplining yourself. That is how tired turns into strong. That is how potential turns into proof. That is how discipline turns effort into destiny.